Hey, welcome to Genre Exposure, a film podcast. Join us as we explore the wide world of cinema, broaden our horizons one movie at a time. I'm one of your hosts, Dustin, and as usual, I'm here with Michael.
Hello.
And Jason.
Hey, everyone.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Doing great.
I'm doing okay. Having a little chocolate.
Little snack.
You've got like a little snack bar set up over there this time.
Well, because I didn't want to get judged for rattling the paper.
Oh, you would be judged, sir.
But so I have a peanut allergy and a tree nut allergy. But I used to love peanut butter, as Jason knows, because I used to have a finger jar in our apartment.
Oh my god!
That it was just you don't make a sandwich out of that peanut butter because that's where Michael dips his.
He wrote finger jar on this jar
That's
of
where
peanut
Michael
butter.
dips his finger in to eat peanut butter. But then I developed an allergy and
From too much peanut butter.
probably
apparently.
from too much peanut
Probably
butter.
from eating it off your finger like some sort of a heathen. You couldn't use a spoon. I never understood
People do that. People do that.
Yeah, well,
So then Trader Joe's came out with his sunflower butter, like little Reese cup things. Yeah.
Did you land a sponsorship with Trader Joe or something?
I wish I did, but Jason's wife so kindly always makes sure that I have a bag of these when I'm here. And she's a very sweet lady.
So we're a podcast that talks about film.
Yeah.
and food.
So I've heard.
People with allergies.
Hey, man, COVID's been rough this last few weeks, so I need my chocolate. And
Okay.
Oh, snack
Okay.
away. We're not judging.
Yeah, go ahead.
I need my chocolate, and I need my Moscow Mule for the honor of this
Yeah, a couple of us are drinking some Moscow Mules because we have a kind of a Russian-themed movie today.
Right, this is our first listener episode of the year. And we have a cool, the guy actually wrote us a little letter about this film. He's very passionate about it. So we're going to get into all of that later. But first, as usual, we're going to talk about what we've been watching. And I have another podcast shout out, like I've been doing here recently.
Go for it.
Because we are part of the Prescribed Films Podcast Network. We're under no compulsion to shout out any of these other shows. But in my time, I've decided to listen to everyone else. Check them out, see what they're about.
Check it out.
Shout it out loud.
So the one
Thank you,
I've
Paul.
checked out this time is Bigfoot for Breakfast.
Bigfoot for breakfast.
I really do love that name.
So if you know me, you know I love paranormal stuff, all the weirdness, all the creepiness. I listen to a lot of paranormal podcasts anyways, and they are a research-based podcast that is dedicated to the exploration of anything mysterious.
Ooh.
Their subjects are broad and varied and include conspiracy, UFO, cryptozoology, paranormal disappearances, and many other strange occurrences. There's two hosts, Sarah and Samantha, and they, I think on their website it said they had 10 years or so of experience with researching and looking into stuff like this. It's pretty good. It's quite good. I really the editing is what really stuck out to me. They kind of have that there's lots of cuts in it, but it gives it that NPR feel where it's very professional and very structured.
Nice.
Nothing like what we do. Much better.
It's much better.
And they both have very good literally radio quality sounding voices.
Oh, very cool.
Very good, very informative.
What's their style? Are they
Also unlike us, because I'm sitting here eating peanut butter chocolate cookies now.
right?
Yeah. Sorry, Jason, what was your question?
Are they kind of skeptical, or are they sort of embracing it, or is it just sort of a neutral stance?
From the ones I've listened to, it's kind of a neutral vibe. They'll just present this is the facts that are known. This is this person's account. This is this person's story, and they sort of just leave it up to you.
That's cool.
You know,
I can get behind.
They don't push any specific well, this is obviously stupid.
Just like Fox News. They're just like Fox News. They don't push anything
They're
on you.
fair and balanced.
Fair and balanced, yeah.
Excellent. I don't think they're going to like that comparison. To Fox
I'm
News.
sorry. Don't.
Or they might. I don't know.
Just know that Michael said that, and he hasn't listened, so he doesn't know what he's talking about.
I have no idea.
I somehow doubt it.
No, but it's super fun, super informative. I think I'm so deep in it. I don't think they ever had any topics that was a new revelation to me. But I think if this is something that interests you that you want to get into, they're very informative, very thorough, and they have show notes with links to all of the stuff they reference.
Oh.
Very cool.
You were probably instantly.
Yeah.
You were like, show notes, tell me more.
I was like, oh, I love this. They haven't had an episode in a while, and I kind of poked around their socials to check them out. It seems like they've done some convention appearances and panels and things like that, and there's rumors of a new season coming back. So.
Okay, I was hoping they didn't disappear or something. They investigated the wrong mansion and something happened.
Do you need to check on them? Are they okay?
So yeah, Bigfoot for Breakfast, super fun, super cool. I hope they come back.
Cool. I'll check them out.
We'll reach out. We'll be like, hey, are you guys okay? And if they give us a generated bot response, we know that they've dug a little too far.
Uh-oh.
Which can happen in these things, as we know.
As we know, all those movies didn't lie to us.
All right, what you guys been watching?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Actually, this is kind of a rewatch for me, but it's been so long since I originally saw it. Like, we're talking the late 90s or something. Mill of the Stone Women.
Oh, this has got a big restoration, yeah.
Yeah. It's streaming on Arrow and on Shudder right now.
Didn't Lance and Erica actually do that one too? A long time ago?
Did they?
I think it was one of their earlier episodes, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Look at
Excellent.
me delving into the back catalog of fellow podcasters.
Nice. Well done.
Thank you.
It's 1960. It's Italian, directed by Giorgio Ferroni. And I'll just kind of read the little synopsis here real quick. In the 19th century Holland, a professor of fine arts and an unlicensed surgeon run a secret lab where the professor's ill daughter receives blood transfusions from kidnapped female victims who posthumously become macabre art.
Wow.
And it's gorgeous color. This came out actually before some of the bigger, like, Mario Bava films that we're all familiar with. Mm-hmm. But it's very much kind of like a Hammer film meets House of Wax meets Eyes Without a Face.
Wow. Good references, yeah.
Yeah. So I highly recommend it. It's very good. It's a slow burn. It's one of those great movies that you can just turn on and just spend time with. And if you like a slow burn film and you like just gorgeous cinematography, it's for you.
I've been actually, since I had listened to that episode a while back ago, I really wanted to watch that movie. But at the time, I don't think there was a good transfer of it.
They were making such a big deal. I remember some of the festivals last year, they actually screened the new print.
Cool.
And it's just streaming, it was gorgeous. So I don't know what an actual physical copy would look like. I'm sure Dustin will pick that up on Blu-ray and let us know.
Probably, yeah.
As soon as you mentioned it, he was like, "No,
you would dig it." I mean, if you're a fan of like Hammer or Bava,
if you give it the rec, then yeah, it's good as a bought.
I mean, all you had to do was say Hammer, and I was in.
Yeah. Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll go next.
Okay.
I've been delving back into the Shawscope box set.
Yes.
Cool. I promise I'm not just going to do every film sequentially, but this one really...
Who gives a fuck? Just do every film sequentially, because they're good. That list you sent me is good.
So I watched The Boxer from Shantung from 1972.
I don't think I've actually seen that one.
I haven't seen it.
So just the synopsis: leaving the poverty of his life in Shantung to seek fortune in Shanghai, the boxer is drawn into a world of corruption, gang warfare, and evil, where his only protection is his famed fighting technique. So while King Boxer was a very much like traditional kung fu martial arts sort of movie thing going on, this one is almost like a crime film that happens to have martial arts in it. And there's like these different gangs that are kind of running the city, and your lead is just this guy who's there like trying to find fame and fortune. He's poor, he's doing whatever odd jobs he can to make money. And he kind of starts to realize that like through his fighting that he's so good at, he can like actually rise up and become like some of these other people that are like running gangs and running the city. And it's almost like this weird martial arts version of Scarface. Because you go through like his rise to power, and he like builds up and becomes more respected and known in the city. And
snort a mountain of cocaine at any point.
Like Scarface, things kind of go awry, and at the end, he suffers this great fall for his hubris for everything.
Yeah.
Super entertaining, very much like a darker tone compared to King Boxer. So I was impressed at like the range you could do while it's still like a martial arts film. It went in like such a different direction that was really impressive.
I think that's one of the cool things about the Shaw Brothers stuff, is that it was kind of like you went to them and you had an idea, and they're like, well, is it good? And they're like, we think so. They're like, okay, we'll do it.
Yeah, because I think from afar, someone will look at them and just say, well, all of these are the same movie. Which one's the best one? I'll watch that one, and then there's no other reason to check out the rest.
Like everybody would assume like, oh, it says Shawscope, it's all Chopsaki stuff. No, they did a lot of different stuff.
Watching them now, I'm noticing there's like so much particulars in each one that they really have their own like style and feel to them.
There's a great documentary that I watched a while back ago that I don't think it was that Kung Fu Fist one. I'll find it for you, because I think you'd really dig it. It really focused on Shaw Brothers stuff and like them.
Cool.
Like their production style. I think you'd dig it a lot.
I would be interested to see that, yeah.
Is there a documentary on the box set?
I don't believe so, no. There's a lot of like commentary and interviews and stuff.
There's a documentary on streaming on Arrow that may be the one you're thinking about, Michael.
It might have been.
Yeah, let's check that out.
Cool.
Well, I really hope we haven't done this one. I can't remember if we have.
We'll find out in a minute.
I know you've seen it, Jason, but it's came out last year, I think. Really towards the very beginning of the pandemic. It was one of the first movies that just dropped straight to streaming. but I never watched it. But I finally watched Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Yes.
We haven't done that one, right?
No, I don't think so.
I think Jason like maybe mentioned it
Did
in
I?
passing
I may have.
at one point, but no one's like, I watched this movie. Here's my thoughts.
Man, I really liked it.
It's fun. I mean,
it's exactly what it is.
It's harmless fun.
It's fun, and like the whole time I was watching it, though, I was hearing Dustin in my head talking about the reboot cools and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think this one did it right. It didn't it nodded slightly to the first two movies, but the rest of it was just like, okay, we embrace that this is just goofy as shit, and we embrace that our characters are.
But it kind of has its own plot, right? It doesn't just like redo the first
it's
film.
not the same thing.
It does. So basically, like from the first film, you're told George Carlin tells them like, the Wild Stallions are going to unite the world or whatever. You're going to unite the universe. And this one is basically they've never done it. Like they've after Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey and they go to hell and everything. Like they just end up not doing it.
Yeah, they live in a neighborhood. They live right next to each other.
They talk to their wives and refer to them. They always say, "We love you." Like,
And their daughters, they each have a girl, and they call Bill and Ted both. They call them dads.
Yeah.
It's plural. It's always dads.
they're like so interconnected with each other. The jokes, honestly, I thought the jokes landed well, just because they made a joke. The opening scene is them playing their stepmom's wedding, which if you've seen the original, which I watched, God, like a billion times.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Growing up, it was one of my favorite movies of all time. And there's always like the joke about their stepmom, and so now this time the stepmom is marrying Bill's brother, I think,
Yeah.
which then makes like. He goes into like it actually makes him his own father. And it's just so funny that they took that joke and just ran with it extra.
Wow.
It's got a really fun kind of cameo cast. Like Dave Grohl pops up once in a pretty funny scene.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed it at the time, Jason, but the guy who plays the robot who's sent to kill them is the guy with alopecia from Barry.
Oh yeah. Right. Yes.
Who is fucking hilarious, which is another great show that
he's
a lot of
really
people
good.
haven't seen. It's just goofy. It's silly. It's streaming on Hulu, so it's it's not a heavy watch. But if you liked Bill and Ted, you know what you're getting into. But it was, I don't know. It makes me smile thinking about it just because it was so silly of a movie. William Sadler returns to play Death because he was Death in Bogus Journey.
William Sadler is a national treasure.
They talk about why they fired him from the band because he just kept doing 40-minute bass solos during all the shows.
And that's a problem?
Yeah, apparently it's an issue. So yeah, Bill and Ted Face the Music. Nothing special, but I think it's nostalgia done right, personally.
I think I can convince myself enough that it's not a reboot cool that maybe I'll
give
it a watch.
No, it really... Kristen Shaw is also in it if you're a fan of her.
Yeah, she's great. She's hilarious.
She shows up. There's just a lot of fun people that pop up, and they're on purpose. They're not like, hey, look who it is. It's part of the joke.
Nice.
So it's quick too. I think it's like an hour, 40 minutes. Not really.
They didn't want to do like a 3-hour epic.
No. Evil did not die tonight. They're trying to save the music.
So this is our first listener episode. We're covering The Beast of War.
Not first listener episode ever.
No, for the year.
For the year.
We're covering The Beast of War, a.k.a. The Beast, from 1988, directed by Kevin Reynolds. And a listener named Nick recommended this to us.
Hey, Nick.
And he wrote us a pretty lengthy message about it because he was very impassioned about this film.
I appreciated it.
So he said, hi guys, a while back I stumbled across a movie I had never heard of. I was completely blown away, and ever since I've been desperately trying to convince everyone across the movie fandom to give it a shot and hopefully drag it out from obscurity. This movie is called The Beast of War, aka The Beast. It was only released in 2 screens across the whole US by Columbia Pictures, and I kid you not when I say this is the best Hollywood film you've never heard of. He goes on to say Quentin Tarantino's old writing partner, Roger Avery, has it down as the best movie of 1988 on his Letterboxd. And he also has it down as one of his 20 desert island films, with Apocalypse Now being the only other war film in that list. It has a rating of 7.3 on IMDb, 3.5 on Letterboxd. Not a single critical review on Rotten Tomatoes, but it does have an audience score of 85%. He says, I'm reaching out to get more and more podcasts to try to check it out and review it, and encourage people to go on Letterboxd and write up reviews for it. I think it would be great if a company like Criterion or Shout Factory, etc. could get their hands on this and give it the exposure it clearly needs. Please seek this film out. It's available on DVD and streaming, so it won't be difficult to track down, and if you do see it, let me know if you agree with me that this might be one of the 10 best American movies of the 1980s. One way or another, we need to find a way to raise this movie's profile and prevent it from its continual obscurity once and for all.
Well said.
Very well said. And that's like one of the things I've always talked about with this podcast and doing it is like I want to find these movies that people just love, that have somehow just gone missing and forgotten.
Yes.
And, you know, we will never be like some trendy influencer in film podcast or anything, but we're one pebble in the pond in support of stuff like this.
Right.
So
Even if one person watches this movie, they may tell someone else, and then it spreads, you know?
That's how COVID happens.
That's how COVID happens.
So let's do like a better version of COVID, but with
good movies.
with the
good
love
movies.
of film, yeah. So thank you, Nick, for reaching out to us and writing us about this. He was also very kind of sent us some links, which was pretty cool because it basically already did half our research for us.
Very informative. Yeah, very cool.
And thorough. He's a good man.
And thorough.
And thorough.
So I guess the first place to start is the genre, which it's a war movie.
Yes.
We haven't done any.
I don't think we've done one, no.
Movies, no.
I don't know if we need to super define what they are because that's one of those ones where it's kind of just on the tin,
It's
right?
a war movie. People fight.
It's about a war.
Yeah, you've got armies, and they clash, and it's set during war.
Jason,
it's a war movie.
Jason, no. When one army hates another army.
Specifically,
Yeah, what war are we talking about this
we're
time?
talking about the Soviet Afghan War. This is set in 1981. And there was a 9-year conflict where the Mujahideen fought a guerrilla war against the Democratic Republic of Afghanistan and the Soviet Union.
Let's not confuse that with the however long war that the United States tried to do the
Or any war in Afghanistan.
tried to do the exact same tactics over and over and over again.
Which I think we may notice as we talk about this film. There's a bit of a timeless quality to the themes and messages.
Oh yeah. You're
held
watching
within.
it and you're like, man, you guys just should have watched The Beast and before you invaded Afghanistan because it came out before that. So
Yeah.
And you know, I was reading some of the background on this, and it was interesting because I think it was like 1978. There was a political coup there, and that Democratic Party. You just said it, Jason, and I already lost the name.
Democratic Republic of Afghanistan.
Yes. They like took control and then like reached out to the Soviet Union for support.
Right, yeah. The Democratic Republic wanted to modernize Afghanistan, but of course their methods were draconian and, what's the word? A little too communisty.
and let's not forget that the United States hates communism.
Hates it.
And in a lot of ways, this conflict is kind of part of like the whole proxy war thing of the Cold War, which was like a larger thing all through
Yep,
this
yeah.
time.
It's pretty much the Soviets, Vietnam. But particularly the Mujahideen, a lot of people in Afghanistan were completely against the modernization. They didn't want to change their ways. You know, they were old, they were sacred, they weren't going to change, so they decided to fight the Soviet Union.
And what did the United States do?
Helped them.
Yeah,
Gave them weapons.
exactly.
Gave them aid.
We were like, wait, you guys teamed with the Russians? Fuck those guys. We're going to give you some guns. You want some
Yeah.
guns? Here you go.
Yeah.
So I think there's no better place to start on this film.
We're like, oh shit. Okay.
Well, I mean, the Mujahideen, a lot of the leaders basically became the Taliban years
Yeah.
later.
Good to note.
Yeah.
That might make it
Oops.
weird, I think, if you're coming at this from like a modern lens, but I think you really just have to take it as like a slice of the time that it's set in.
Right.
It's very easy, and like, as me, the panel historian with the actual degree in that one, you have to very much be careful about what lens you look at
Well,
this through.
it's not black or white. You know, there's a lot of components
Yeah.
of these wars.
And so I think it might be a little hard for some viewers to watch this film, though, without looking at it through the lens of the United States involvement in Afghanistan, because that's what we know. You know, that's so much what we're used to and what we see. It's paralleled here very well. Like, you see a lot of things where you could easily look at this and be like, this is just the United States involvement there. But
yeah, I actually got Tiffany to watch this with me, and I kind of gave her the synopsis, and then we kept watching, and like the early part, she kept being like, when is this set? What war did you say this was again?
Well, speaking of, we should probably briefly say what the synopsis of the movie is.
Yes, what is this movie about?
Basically, it is about a Soviet tank crew that gets lost during an operation. They're off by themselves, separated, and a band of mujahideen are tracking them, trying to destroy the tank and kill the crew.
for a good reason.
Yes.
As the film opens, God, it was fucking rough, man. Like,
Yeah, it opens with a couple of tanks just destroying a village.
and not just destroying the village.
It's the way it starts too, because like it opens on like shots of the village.
Yeah.
And kind of just sweeping through, and it's very serene.
It's normal
and-
people just doing normal, like, survival things.
I think it's pronounced Pashtun. It's a Pashtun village. It's a particular group of people in Afghanistan.
Oh, yeah, because the language that's spoken is a specific dialect.
Yeah,
of,
Pashto, I think it's called.
I think
Forgive us if we massacre some of these words.
I'm pretty sure Pashto is one of the specific dialects of Arabic that is spoken throughout most of Afghanistan.
Cool.
Because that's one of the things that, like, Pashto is apparently much harder than Arabic. So the United States, they were looking for people who had linguistics, like, gifts, kind of abilities, and we're sending a lot of them to school to learn Pashto because it's very hard for native Arabic speakers to speak Pashto.
Interesting.
See, I knew you'd be good for this film, Michael, because it's right in your wheelhouse.
Because the Middle Eastern history thing, and imagine that.
But yeah, it's this peaceful, serene village, and then just suddenly these two tanks roll up, and they just lay waste to the place, man.
Yeah, blowing everything up, setting fires, killing livestock,
Poisoning the well.
poison the well.
And they really go for it with the effects. Like, you get all these long, wide shots where you just see the destruction full on. Like, they don't shy from anything.
And this is one of the times I'll just talk about the beauty of practical filmmaking.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because the fact that all this is in camera and real, you know, they're blowing up real structures. You know, you've got a real tank, you've got real people. It adds so much.
I think I saw they said they shot this in Iran, I want to say, or Israel. Israel, yeah. Yep.
Definitely not Iran. Definitely not Iran.
But yeah, it's just because I could see this being made now, and it would be all CG,
Yeah.
too slick and fake looking, and it will lose that punch.
Or we'll cut so you never see the actual destruction, so you don't feel
Yeah,
the true
yeah, the punch. Yeah,
you don't feel what was happening to the people.
Right.
yeah, and they're rolling in the village, and the group of women come out, and maybe we should talk about that quote at the beginning of the movie.
I have it down here because I wanted to talk about that. It's from a Rudyard Kipling,
Yes,
The Young British Soldier.
yes. It goes, when you're wounded and left on Afghanistan's plains, and the women come out to cut up what remains, just roll to your rifle and blow out your brains and go to your God like a soldier.
Yep.
And these women come out throwing stones at the tanks, and they're climbing on top and banging on it. And it's like, damn,
Yeah.
Well,
it's hardcore. I love it.
which I think is important to note because, and it still is shown here, the culture is still very patriarchal. You know, like, it is, no, you go back and do what we think you should do.
Right.
You're not supposed to be in this fight. This is us. God ordained us to do it.
Because they have a Khan that's kind of like the one who calls the shots.
Yeah, it's essentially like a warlord for them. So, but yeah, we see them very early on, like, women taking an active role, which we'll see again, which I think is such a
great.
fun payoff.
There's a lot of cool like setup callback in this film. Like there's that, and when they're doing those opening like shots, one of them is on some wild dogs. They're just like hanging out on the outskirts of town.
Yeah.
And that's like just sort of an ominous thing they show you that then there's payoff later for.
Yeah. And we see very early on, like, there is one person basically left after they've just destroyed this village who takes his opportunity and, knows he's going to die.
Yep.
Because he doesn't stand a chance, but tries to kill as many of them as possible because they think they've got the village. Mm-hmm. They don't think anybody's left. And this guy comes along and does whatever he can. He kills quite a few, I think.
And the notable thing is it's two tanks, right? That are just rolling through.
Yeah.
And the second one gets taken out, right? He drops a grenade in there, I think.
Yeah, they open up the hatch and drop in the Molotov cocktail.
We do see kind of the hero of the film take action here.
Yep, Kurvachenko, played by Jason Patric.
His first name's what? Constantine, I think.
Yep,
too.
Constantine. And a lot of you will probably recognize him from The Lost Boys.
Mm-hmm. And this is maybe where we should...
Speed 2.
Or Speed
2. And this is where we should maybe talk about this Russian tank crew. None of them are Russian.
Nope, they don't speak with a Russian accent.
And they all speak just plain English, straight on.
Yep.
Which I almost prefer.
Well, it makes sense, because we're with them. We are supposed to understand what they're saying, so why would they have an accent?
Mm-hmm. But, and also, don't try to get actors. Right. Russian is one of those languages. I took a year of Russian in college. I can tell you, 5 words that I remember from it. But I also remember how fucking hard that language was. Mm-hmm. And also, when people try to do Russian accents in movies, they just sound like caricatures.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So, I think it was smart on the director's part to just be no, we're not going to be able to do this convincingly. So just go straight with it,
Right.
And that's one of those things where I think this film has a timeless quality to it, is that because it's like that, that is where it gets sort of the dreaminess of this is just a thing, and doesn't really matter when it happens. We've seen it happen here. It's going to happen again. We know now in the ranks of history.
The nationality doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure we'll speak about this a little bit more later, but I think this is also informed by the screenwriter's experiences in Afghanistan, because he mentioned that the Soviet soldiers that he saw looked very American to him.
Yeah, I remember reading that they just looked like any other American that you'd see. Which it's interesting because we don't really think about. This is actually a really interesting time for us to do this movie, because I don't know what will happen by the time this airs. But as the time currently, while we were recording this, Russia is on the verge of invading Ukraine.
Not according to them.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens by the time this drops, but it's very interesting that this was kind of the time, because the way we view Russia and always have viewed Russia through the United States lens is this evil. Mm-hmm. But yet in World War II, they were our friends. They were
they weren't at first.
No, but once they realized that...
Once they were betrayed by Hitler, then okay.
But... It's kind of an interesting relationship that the United States and as Americans we've had with Russia for so long. We're always well, are they our friends? Are they not our friends? Are they our friends? Are they not our friends? And so currently, right now, they are not. Was what I've been told. So it's interesting to watch this film right now with that kind of climate going on.
Yeah, it seems like that's always going on somewhere, doesn't it?
Yeah, but that's what we do.
So right away we see that Jason Patric's Kurvachenko has some morality. He's trying to help the tank crew that's on fire. He's trying to get them out, but it's useless, and they're dead. And the guy who threw in the cocktail has his rifle, has a bead on Kurvachenko, and shoots, tries to fire, but it's a dud.
Yep.
He's using the old flintlock, and it does not go off.
And so they capture that guy.
They capture him.
And we meet the leader of this tank crew, which is Daskal.
Yes.
Played by George Dunza.
What a right fucking bastard he is, too.
Yeah, he's a great character actor.
Oh,
he's done so much stuff. I guarantee you've seen him in something.
It's actually, as far as cast goes, it's really well.
It's a great cast.
It's a great cast.
Really Zunzo was in The Deer Hunter, Crimson Tide, 2 other really good war movies.
Nice.
He's probably best known for his run on Law and Order, but to me, he'll always be Kelly Sawyer from the 1979 miniseries Salem's Lot.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah. That's awesome.
All of these guys too have very familiar looking faces. You can look at him and go, "I've seen that dude in 100 other things."
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So they catch this guy, and they're questioning him, and of course he won't say anything. And the commander...
So we should say notably, among their crew, they have it's a guy that's from Afghanistan, right?
Yes.
That
Samad. I think his
Samad,
name is.
yeah, Samad.
Yes.
Which you might recognize from his famous line from Encino Man. No Weasin' the Juice Man. He's actually the guy who plays the convenience store owner.
Right,
Eric
Avari.
He's been in a fuck ton of stuff.
Yeah, I was going to go with Stargate or The Mummy.
No. No, Encino Man. No Wea's the Juice.
He's also been in not one, not two, but 3 Star Trek shows. He was on TNG and DS9 and Enterprise.
And there's our Star Trek reference for the episode.
Getting it in
But
every
most
time.
importantly,
You're welcome.
don't wheeze the juice. No wheezing the juice, man.
Yeah, I never saw that movie.
What?
So, yeah, he's like their interpreter.
Right.
And their guide. And he's trying to hold back these women that come running out. And yeah, well, they tell the man, whose name turns out to be... What is his name? Because he is the brother of a character who shows up later. I can't find it.
I don't know that his name
We can
matters
come back
that
to
much.
His name's Greg.
Well, his name is about to be fucking crushed like a grape. Because they tell him that the commander tells his men to put him under the tank treads.
Yeah.
And the tension that builds in this is just crazy.
Yeah. But I love the Mujahideen's reaction because he's like, "Get off me," and he crawls under there himself, feet first, his feet sticking up right against the treads. And Daskal orders Krivchenko to drive over him.
And that ends up, though, doing something interesting to the characters because they want to know, why did he smile at me? Mm-hmm. You know,
Yeah,
as
he's just smiling at
as
He has
he's-
like no fear about the situation.
And at the time, which we'll see later, the Russian philosophy is you don't surrender, and you're not taken prisoner. Like, granted, that's not what happened. There was a lot of prisoners taken historically, but for these guys, you don't let them have the tank, and you don't give up any information. So the best thing you can do is off yourself before they get a hold of you. But like, it's not the same for them. You know, it's like for them, the death and the sacrificial death is very like, this isn't what we want to do. But for this guy, it's like, nope. You know, this is how I go to my paradise. Like,
yeah, if this is how I'm to die, then I will die. And his name is Shazaman. And his fiancée, Sharina, comes out. She's the lead woman that we'll see a little bit later.
she's badass.
Yeah, she's badass.
She's awesome.
But it's crazy because like they roll over him and they don't totally show it.
They show the very beginning.
They show the beginning. It's enough to like unnerve you.
Yeah, the feet just...
But what gets me is that then later, after they've moved on, they come back and you see like the red paste streak.
Yeah, and it's just
Ooh.
like...
Well, and you see, that's when you really start to see the breakdown of, sorry, what's Jason Patrick's character's name again? Krivchenko. Starting to see, like, what the fuck are we doing here?
Right.
Like, because there's so much propaganda, and you see it from their commander. This propaganda later in the film when he's talking about when he was 8 years old in Stalingrad and, like, defending his home, and that he was lowered on ropes, you know, to, like, everyone fought. You didn't think, you just gave. And so, like, that's what he's trying to instill in all of these men that are under his command. But, like, you're committing these atrocities, and it's like, who are we doing this for?
Right.
We learn it later, but Krivchenko, he has like a degree in philosophy, I believe.
Yes.
And for Deskal, that really like sticks in his side because he gets on this thing about like, oh, well, you try to think for yourself, but you need to just like follow orders.
Yeah, just follow orders like a good soldier.
There's an interesting view on education through this film as well, because we also see through Eric Avari's character, the translator, Samad, they ask him what he believes. And he says, after university, I'm not sure.
Right.
And so it's almost like they're saying that education is enlightening, you know, makes you a different and better person, while the guy who's the head of the military part is like, no, education does not make you better. I thought that was an interesting juxtaposition to the two.
Right.
So the tank crew rolls on,
Quite literally.
and some of the Mujahideen come up on the town.
Yes, this is where we meet another
This is where we meet Taj,
Taj,
played by Stephen Bauer.
Stephen Bauer, who notably is not Afghani.
No.
So there is an issue of people being cast. It's the 80s. They weren't going to cast people
Right.
of the actual, culture they were depicting.
But everyone's so mixed up in this film, it's like it doesn't matter after a point because they've gone so far with that.
Right, but having said that, I think he does a really great job.
Yeah, he's good.
Yes.
Yeah, he's grief stricken. Is he the brother of?
He's a brother of a man who was crushed, and the brother was supposed to be Khan, but now that he's been crushed, it now falls to Taj to be the Khan. So they all vow revenge that they're going to go after this beast that they call it.
And he's got his uncles there with him that he kind of relies on.
Yeah, he's older, wiser.
And he tells them not to worry because the path that the tank took, they've gone into this place. I think they call it the Valley of the Jackal.
Yes.
And it's this weird sort of like dead-end valley where once you go in, the only way out is back the way you came. Mm-hmm. And clearly the tank crew doesn't know that. So to them, it's like they're going to have their chance at some point.
I'm curious to know at what point during the war this is, because reading the material that, the extra stuff that we were reading about, like the writer and everything, he even mentions talking about it's one of their tactics to lure tanks into these bottlenecks, basically. Take out the front tank, take out the back tank, and then they're stuck in the middle. So I'm curious to kind of know, like, it doesn't seem like these guys have fought tanks before, the Mujahideen who are going to fight them. It seems like they know about them. Mm-hmm. But we also learned they're not the greatest group of soldiers.
Right.
Like, they're not highly trained. They're kind of figuring out as they go. But they seem like they think one tank going through this thing. Yeah, we can get this one tank.
Well, notably, in the wake of everything, they scavenge an RPG, which they think that's going to kind of be their trump.
Yeah, Sharina brings that out.
Yeah.
Now, I really struggled with keeping the characters' names right in this.
There's a lot of characters, surprisingly, yeah.
There is, and they're very similar names sometimes, so I'm also just a bad movie watcher.
And there's another group that also comes up at this point, which they're more like, you can tell they're active rebels and like in the fight.
Yeah.
Led by
Mustafa?
Mustafa, yep.
I actually liked this group because they roll up on like motorcycles and stuff.
They are kind of embracing that modernization.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like the clash between him and Taj, which they're cousins, I want to say.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Mustafa has such a... Who does you have the actor who played him?
Chain Jarafi?
Yep.
If I'm pronouncing that correctly.
I love how he played this. He played him so cocky, so arrogant, and he like grabs the RPG. He's like, "I know how to work this.
Yeah,
like I can totally take the tank out."
And he's told to disarm before he approaches the new Khan, and he's throwing down all these weapons.
What's the line he used?
Oh, God, I can't remember exactly what
I think it says, "Keep Allah in your heart and a pistol."
Yeah,
and
a hidden pistol. Yeah.
I loved it. He's so like he pulls that like, yeah.
Well, I had the key.
Yeah. Of course I had a gun. It already shows the tension though that's so prevalent in Afghanistan between, which is, I mean, I don't want to like impose my political ideal on it, but it's like,
you're American, go ahead.
But it's why these wars don't work. Because we saw the same thing in Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah. Right.
When he calls them Arabia, and they're like, "What Arabia?"
Yeah.
They're like, "We're not a country.
Yeah, we're like tribes, and we're
And you see the same thing here. Like there are guys who are warlords. They have this section is theirs, and there's a strict hierarchy, and they don't always get along with the other guy. If they don't believe the same thing they do or think it should work the same way, they don't get along, and so you don't have like armies that fight together. And you definitely see this here.
And I think to that point, and like kind of one of the general themes of this film that I got out of it was like they raised that question of like, what is the purpose of like other people coming into a place like this and trying to impose like their idea of order and what it should be?
We definitely, as the United States, put a lot of propaganda behind that as to why we're there. But there's really not a whole lot of propaganda. Like, there's really not a lot of answers. Like, why? Why is Russia there? Like, what's your end game here? I don't know. I'm sure.
Same reason they're not invading the Ukraine.
So the tank crew gets kind of lost a little bit. They're looking for Kandahar Road, which is where they're going to link back up across Soviet lines. And as they're taking stock of things, their radio's been damaged.
Yep. They can receive transmissions but cannot transmit. And Samad is relieved of duty for getting them lost.
Right. it's a very frustrating scene because the map has also been damaged.
Yeah.
So he only has like half of the area, and Daskal's asking him like, well, where do we go? Is it this way? Will this get us there? And he's like, I really can't tell you, maybe it seems like it might be that way, but the map's incomplete now, and
right, who knows?
the radio's out, I can't check with anyone.
And we see the treatment of him early on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's treated as lesser, even though he's right there in the thick of it.
Right.
He's treated as lesser, and we even see Krishenkov. Help me say it.
Kurvachenko.
Yeah.
We even see Kurvachenko be like, why are you so hard on him? Like, why do you treat him so bad? And then we see what he does to him.
Yeah, well, eventually.
Which we noticed too, like
Horrible, man. I hate that
Kurvachenko like
scene.
tries to keep the peace with everyone. Like he even tells Samad, like after that first incident where like the commander kind of outbursts on him, he's like, hey, just say yes and just go on and don't bother, and he'll leave you alone eventually.
Yeah, no, he didn't. Spoiler.
And meanwhile, the Mujahideen are tracking them down, and they come across them.
This is amazing.
Yeah. And that guy doesn't really know how to use the RPG.
He fucking fires it from the hip.
Yeah.
I don't think he even knows that he shoots it.
No,
when he
I
dies.
think he had like the safety on or something, and he's fiddling with it, and then it goes off, and it just goes wide to the right.
I love
Taj is yelling at him. You said you knew how to use that.
It's the way everyone else reacts to it. It's the best part. It's so good.
Yeah, they let's see what happens after that.
I don't know.
It's one of the first
Stuff
times
happens.
they kind of stopped a camp. They're all taking a break, and that's
Right,
where
yeah.
Samad and Constantine kind of get, they talk a lot to one another.
Yeah, they're playing chess.
And Samad kind of teaches him a little bit about like the culture that's there, and he talks about how they have this code of honor called Pashtunwali, that's got 3 obligations, which are, and I'm probably going to butcher these words, but my apologies. Melmastia, which is hospitality, Badal, which is revenge, and Nanawate, which is an obligation to give sanctuary to anyone who asks for it.
Even your enemy.
Right, because that's what he asked him. He's like, well, even like if they came up on me and I asked that, you would be obligated to take care of me.
And he says, yep.
Which becomes integral.
Yeah, that comes up later.
And what after they talk about this, what Kurvachenko actually says is that's incredibly civilized to me. So it kind of puts that juxtaposition that like from their point of view, they see them as kind of like lesser because they're not as developed, but
it's that propaganda.
right.
Those are all part of, like, if you actually talk to somebody who's a practicing Muslim and not just take the propaganda that's told to you about who Muslims are and what they do, you will learn that, like, it's not what you think it is at all.
Right.
It's like there's all these pillars of, like, and they're all, hey, be good. Don't be shit. That's basically all these pillars are, and theirs is like, yeah, be a decent human being and be a soldier at the same time. So,
And from the other side, they kind of get into this with Taj, where it's like they dub the tank the Beast, and they kind of set this parallel to the story of David and Goliath.
yeah.
Because same as anyone in Christianity, they have that story too. And so it's the same thing where it's like this insurmountable foe, and yet they're going to find a way with, but a stone to defeat him.
Exactly. And we actually skipped a little part where they get to that water hole, and the tank crew are setting a trap for the rebels attacking them. And yeah, one guy goes to get a drink from this water hole and dies because they poisoned it. But Taj finds the cyanide canister nearby, and you see Daskal and his men in the tank, and he's recriminating one of them because he didn't bring the canister back with him.
Right.
He left it right there for them to find it because they were hoping they would all just drink from the water and die. So they're sitting there waiting for their chance to kill them, and they're all kind of grouped together, and they load a shell, and they go to fire it, and nothing happens.
Right.
And he tries again, click, misfire, and they all freak out and run out of the tank because they're afraid it's going to blow up.
So they have to go and try to like pull the shell out now.
Yeah, and the commander's telling Samad to go do it.
Because he touched the shell at first to draw it out.
Yeah, he's pretty much accusing him of sabotaging it. But Kurvachenko volunteers to go.
And the way they discharge the shell is basically like Kurvachenko's like, this is stupid, you're being ridiculous, like pretty much calling out the commander, like you're being a fucking asshole, and dude just pops the shell like real quick on him to where, you know, it could have exploded at any time. But
Yeah.
how much fun do you think it would be to play as an actor, to play such a right bastard?
Well, I've always heard
gotta
that
be
people
great.
that do villains have the most fun in acting.
It has to be the best.
Because this dude is just awful.
Yeah.
He is the epitome of everyone that you would want to hate.
Zune's is good at that. He's such a great, kind of hateable character actor.
And while it just came to me, we've brushed over it a little bit, but when they're fighting in the tank, I think there's some really cool camera work that goes on, especially when they're like spinning around the cannon.
Right.
And they'll have the camera like inside and like do the 360 spin with them as they go.
That's a hard thing to do, too, because it's such a cramped area. You have to both create the sense of claustrophobia that the characters feel.
Which they do a great job at that.
Yeah, but then you also have to film it, you know, and make it not feel like you're also... I don't know, they do a great job of feeling like the camera's in it.
Right.
When you know it's not.
And then once they get that shell out, they actually use it for another trap.
Yep.
Because they kind of lay it in the sand and they like prop a grenade under it. Because they know that when they come along, someone's going to try to like scavenge that shell and take it.
And someone does that very thing.
Yeah.
And before, the other guys are yelling at him to stop, but he doesn't. And gets blown up real good. That was
Interesting.
another good piece of gore there, too, because this
yeah.
guy is
Yeah.
fucked.
And they even say something about it too. It was like our greed's going to be our undoing or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I really liked that line. It's basically like you keep... which sets the two factions apart. Like one faction amongst the Mujahideen is very interested in
Any technology they can get their hands on.
it's just like the spoils, and the other one is more about. Is that a cat?
But yeah, the guy who messed with the round and got blowed up, they say something about like leave him food and leave him water.
Right, because he's too injured to come with them, but he's
But, I
still
mean,
alive.
Barely. I mean, the guy has it's like there's like intestines outside of his body, and isn't he missing an arm?
But that's kind of their cultural thing, I think, is the
but
point we're supposed to take from
This
that.
guy's not going to last.
Which Mustafa disagrees with.
Right, and he puts a round in his head.
Just but a flesh wound.
But I mean, really, that was a mercy kill.
And you know, I just realized this too during our cat break here. When they set that shell trap, isn't that when they make Samad lay it? And while he's over there, the rest of them are in the tank, and Daskal kind of tries to get Korvachenko to shoot him.
Yes.
Because he says, you know, he's a traitor, we have to get rid of him, shoot
That's
him.
right. Yeah, Korvachenko, of course, refuses.
And it's this awkward thing where, like, everyone in the tank knows that happened, and then Samad comes back, and they just don't say
Oh, we
anything.
totally weren't going to shoot you, bro.
Hey, Samad. Hey, buddy.
Also, during this time, there's a night scene that's really interesting,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
They have to, like, stop in the middle of the night, and they set out these, like, little
Like some sort of sensor or
like
something.
sensors to kind of get, like, a radar of stuff that's around them in case anyone comes up to ambush them in the night. And then as they're just kind of, you know, chilling and winding down, things start to ping on that radar, and they have no way to get any, like, clear visuals.
It's like that
or-
scene in Aliens where they're
Yeah.
surrounded by them, you know.
Interesting outcome for that.
And so, yeah, Duskull decides, like, we're going to spin 360 and fire everything.
Awesome sequence. All the machine guns are going, the flame cannon's going. It's really cool.
That's actually a flame lance of the ancient Hyperzytherian.
Oh, really? Is it? Okay. Thank you for letting me know that.
they're flame lances.
Crossing in a little hawk moon there.
Yeah. Sorry.
But yeah, so they lay waste to this area all around the tank, and it turns out it's just a bunch of deer.
It's there with the way it's like it's just deer, sir.
And then it's amazing because when it picks up in the morning, the Mujahideen come by, and they see there's just like this black circle
Yeah.
burned into the ground, and there's like the charred hunk of a deer just laying there.
Is this where we get to the point where they come to the little river crossing?
Yes.
So at this point, they're still figuring out where they're going, and they think they know where they should be going.
Yep, they got to cross this river, and they're pretty sure it's not too deep.
Right, but what the important part would be is it mud or rock on the bottom? If it's mud, they're going to get stuck. If it's rock, they can go over. So they end up making Samad go. And this is after an argument, which I think is really important. Samad has already let us know early on that he's not sure where he stands on his religion, on what he believes anymore. But he's laying out his prayer rug.
Yep.
to pray, because clearly I think you can see he's struggling with what they've been doing. And as he's going to pray, Right Bastard is basically like, fucking stop that. Like, no. And he's like, I need my prayers. Like, I need to do this. And he's like, no, you don't. No. And basically tells him, like, you're going to go test that water and walk across it. He kind of
just openly calls him a traitor, and Samad, like, questions him, and he's like, why would I do all of this? You know, I went to the Soviet Union, I became a citizen, I have, like, my family to worry about, why would I betray now?
Right. But ultimately, it's just, he didn't like him. You know, he still viewed him as the enemy because he looked like the enemy. And so as he has them... Stephen Baldwin is also pissing in this river.
Fuck. Sorry. My turn to finally do that.
Somebody got excited at the mention of Stephen Baldwin.
Stephen Baldwin pissing in a river. Which I think it's a funny scene, because he's just like, because I'm like, why are you pissing in the river? Like, why do you...
Yeah, and they're like filling their canteens and stuff.
Yeah, and while you're pissing in the river, like, stop. Stephen Baldwin, quit peeing in the river, man.
Oh, and also, for his insubordination and not shooting Samad earlier, they downgrade Kovalchenko, and he has to do, like, the little log where he logs everything that's going on.
And they tell him, basically, if he does anything else, he's court-martialed.
So he's kind of, like, not in this. He's, like, off to the side, like, filling out the book.
Yeah.
So now Samad, while Stephen Baldwin's peeing in the river, Samad, like, just bold-faced, just fucking walks out into it, like, fine, whatever. He says the river's freezing cold, and then tells him he asks, is it slate or mud? And he tells him, no, it's rock, and fucking just unloads the machine gun on him.
Yep.
Which it's brutal. It's a brutal scene.
Hard scene to watch.
Yeah.
And that's when you see Jason Patrick, because I'm...
Kovalchenko,
whatever, man.
Whatever. You can just call him Jason Patrick.
Or Constantine. Is that easier for you to...
Yeah, Constantine.
Well, so don't think of Keanu Reeves. That doesn't...
Jason Patrick is easier. You know?
But that's the actor, not the
Sleep
character.
all day, party all night.
Yeah, and the first thing Kovalchenko does is he's like,
writing it in
he's
the
like,
log.
I'm going to write this down. And he's like, you can't write that down. And Descal actually takes the book and just tears the page out.
Yeah.
I kind of loved that. He's like, what are you doing? I'm writing this down. You can't write that down.
And it's like, well, you ordered him to do that.
Yeah.
This dude is just completely inept at command. Like, through the entire thing. Like, he's the worst person to command this tank, but also has such a sense of entitlement that he should command this tank because he's Tank Boy.
Yeah, he tells a story. He was known as Tank Boy during the war with the Nazis. He was like 8, and they would lower him down on top of the tanks.
Dropping Molotovs in there and stuff like that.
Yeah, and he's really proud of himself for all this.
And he says some interesting stories there, too. Like, he talks about being in Mongolia, which I learned that's a goof where, like, there's no logical way that could happen.
Oh.
But it's just a random story that's in there. But he talks about one time, like, he's got the tank, and they take a mortar, like, straight on.
Yeah,
and
like the commander and the gunner, they were killed.
Like, everyone died but him in the driver's seat, but the tank held. And he mentions, like, well, now our tanks are so much more advanced, we could get through anything as long as we're inside it.
They can't be destroyed.
Yeah.
This guy is, like, the perfect epitome of what's left of, like, old Russia. You know, like, we have the Russia that's kind of moving into modernization and, like, Western, a little bit more Western style culture. But this dude's, he's still hardcore. Like, he's still Stalin boy. You know, like, the old Russia where you will die. You will run into combat with no weapons.
Yeah, because he's talking about he was in Stalingrad, right?
Yeah. Yep. And that's where basically they were given guns with no ammo.
Yeah.
Because the guy next to you got the ammo.
Right.
So
and he drops, grab the gun, and...
That's,
But the thing he says is that through all his time, he's learned when to just smell a traitor, and he knows automatically. Yep. So he's 100% confident Samad was a traitor. Nothing will ever change his mind. He was right.
And he accuses Kovalchenko of treason as well. Because he keeps saying the tank's breaking down, we're not going to make it. You know, we got to stop, we got to fix this. And Daskal has the gunner, which is Kaminsky. I don't know if we mentioned his character's name yet.
Is that...
That's Don Harvey. I'm less familiar with him.
Don Harvey's been in a shit ton of stuff. Yeah. But he's always such a blending character
He's kind
actor.
of one of those that guys.
Yeah, he blends into everything he does. But you've seen his face.
Yeah.
I guarantee he's been in something you've seen.
Stephen Baldwin plays Golikov. He's the loader.
He's just Stephen Baldwin.
So they tie him to a rock.
And this is where that philosophy discussion comes up.
Yeah.
because it's actually, I think it's Golikov or Kaminsky. One of them brings up the idea that they're going to need to like stop and repair, and they're like whispering about it, and they're even like, "Oh, he's crazy. We need to do something." Mm-hmm. And then Daskal's like, "What are you guys talking about?"
You're like, "Nothing, sir. Nope, whatever you say,
and
sir."
Kurvachenko just says, "Well, the tank's breaking down. We need to stop and take care of this."
Mm-hmm. Daskal won't have it.
He loses it on him.
Yep. So they tie Kurvachenko to a rock. They put a grenade. They pull the pin out and put the grenade behind his head, so his head's keeping, the.
I did have an issue with this scene. The spoon.
The spoon?
Yeah, it's called a spoon. It's the pin holds the spoon in.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Or maybe it's not officially called the spoon, but I've always heard it.
That's
called
what you call it.
I've always heard it called the spoon.
Okay. When you're using your grenades,
because it's spooning the grenade. See, it's like spooning it.
I think this is a you thing. I've got to look this up.
Someone in the military write us in and correct
call
us.
it a spoon. A paddle, a spoon.
But yeah, it's another trap they're trying to lay where they assume like, oh, they're gonna find him. They'll try to move him, and then that'll activate the grenade.
I took a huge issue with this scene.
Okay, it's known in U.S. forces as a spoon. That's like a colloquial thing. You're right. You're right.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a safety handle or lever. Yeah.
The lever.
The lever. Do not look directly into the lever.
Okay, what's your issue?
So when we see Jason Patrick tied to the rock and
Kurvachenko
and the Constantine,
Lost Boy, dude.
And the dogs come up, Michael.
Michael, that's his name.
Yeah, this is where we get the payoff on the dogs.
The dogs come up, basically, like, ooh, we're going to eat you.
Yeah, free meal.
And he ends up, like, rolling off of the grenade. The grenade rolls off the rock and then blows up the dogs.
Yes.
There's no fucking way he doesn't escape that without shrapnel all in his entire lower half.
There's another attack earlier where the Mujahideen are dropping grenades on them when they're under the tank.
Yeah.
And even hiding under the tank where the grenades drop. Because you see the one guy, Don Harvey.
His face gets kind of jacked
Yeah,
up.
he gets a little bit of shrapnel in the face. But, I mean, honestly, the shrapnel would have gotten all of them. You know, grenades are never portrayed as dangerous as they actually are in movies.
Yeah.
Even one that's fairly realistic like this one.
But even, okay, also, you wouldn't be able to hear for the rest of your life from a grenade like that close at your head.
You probably can't hear anyway.
That's true. That scene really bothered me for some reason. It just was.
It didn't really pull me out because the way the rock's set up, it's kind of like there's a lip.
No, Dustin.
And it rolls like under the lip where the dogs are.
No,
I could see it.
He didn't make his dex save. He's tied up. He's flat-footed. He can't make a dex save.
What's with all the RPG references this time?
I'm just trying to speak to the language you know.
Grenade? Well, they're carrying a rocket-propelled grenade with them.
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh yeah, the dogs die and he's left for dead, basically.
Yeah. And we see then like buzzards are circling over him now, so it's like kind of issuing his death warrant there. But soon, the Mujahideen arrive on him.
And before they run up on him, too, those women come back.
Yeah.
Led by Sharina.
And they want to fight.
And they say, yeah, let us join us. Let us join you. We'll fight. And they tell them, like, you don't have any weapons. Leave it to us.
She pulls out fucking Comp B and, like, grenades.
Yeah.
She's got tons of explosives. I fucking love it.
Yeah.
She's like, I got these.
And he's just like, no, go back, woman. You can't fight. Okay.
And then they find Kurvachenko, and rightfully, I think they're kind of just moving to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
And
but Kurvachenko pleads Nanawate.
Yep.
And they're like, what? Wait, what? Wait, you can't. Oh.
Parlay.
And that's again another time where Taj and Mustafa kind of clash because Mustafa's like, well, we just need to kill him.
Right.
There's no point.
And they're like, that code is for us. He's not one of us. You know, we're not beholden by that code.
But then Taj says, no matter what,
Yeah.
we have to hold to this.
Right. Which is incredibly civilized.
But it's also showing, I don't know, I think that's probably more apt to the difference between, like, you truly see the difference between the two and, like, what is your end goal?
Right.
Kind of thing. And you constantly see one side being like, look, we keep trying to stoop to their level. This is why Allah won't bless us. Because we're not fighting with honor.
Mm-hmm.
But then he realizes, like, okay, wait a minute. When they realize that the RPG's broken.
Right. Well, the whole scene, like, it slows down here a little bit, but I think it's interesting the way they've done it because I think if it was any other movie, they would put in one of the Mujahideen who could speak Russian somehow.
Right.
and
Yeah.
he would be the translator, and they would confer. But they don't do that.
Yeah, I really like this scene a lot.
So there's this long scene of like Taj and Kurvachenko where they're kind of like understanding one another, and he teaches him a few words of Russian. He learns a little bit of their language.
And one little bit I liked a lot was that Taj takes food from everyone and puts it in front of Kurvachenko.
And he gets like the first pick, basically.
Yeah, and it's like they can't eat until he does.
That's a very traditional.
Yeah.
That's a very traditional Islamic thing.
And then once he starts eating, they all grab their food back and start munching.
But yeah, he notices that the RPG's messed up.
Yeah, and they're like, and he says he could fix it, basically. Kurvachenko says he could fix it.
I love. It's kind of the beauty of like all those old weapons, like holdovers from World War II.
Yeah, there's an old infield there, and he asked for that rifle.
He's like, yeah, we can take pieces of that and it'll fix this.
Yeah.
Probably because it was pieces of the infield that was made for it.
And it's funny how dismissive Mustafa is, because he's like, oh, well, great, now he's ruined 2 of our weapons.
Yeah, because he's taking them both apart.
And then when he actually looks, when he fixes it, shows them that it does click and it can fire, and he looks through the scope
And shows them how it's actually done.
you see their faces like, yeah, scope, yeah.
And I love that scene where he's sitting there fixing it. And I'm a sucker for scenes like that, where people are like taking something and jury rigging it and make it. It reminds me of Eli Wallach in The Good and Bad, the Ugly.
Okay, yeah,
where
yeah.
he's making his own gun.
Yeah.
in that shop. It's fantastic.
Then there's the nice homage to that too in John Wick 3,
Yeah, right.
which
right.
is straight homage.
Oh, it's straight. Yeah, straight up. Homage.
but so well done, just great.
But
Anyway.
kind of then in this very rudimentary understanding that they have, Taj asks him, like, will you help us blow up this tank? And he agrees.
yeah.
I think it's also, you see at this agreement is more like, if I don't, they're going to kill me. So I think it starts as like an agreement of not of revenge.
Even then, like,
He has no reason to want to
They've-
save them.
yeah, they've screwed him over every which way, so, like, why not?
I think at that point, Kurvachenko would like to kill Daskal.
I don't know. I didn't get it fully yet. I think
I did,
that-
because I think he really tries to pull for Samad, and I think there's a vibe that he wants to, like, help him see through the war, and then Daskal just, like, crushes that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe. I like to think there's a little bit more of, I don't know. But I think that might have been colored by what I read about the author, though. Okay. By saying, when the author said that he basically saw Russian captives captured, and they say, well, you want to write about this, go talk to him. And so he writes about him and then realizes, like, as soon as he's done, they're going to go kill them.
Yeah.
So he's like, shit, this is very fucking real. Like, I'm not just interviewing these guys. They're pleading with me, essentially, to help. And that's kind of how I viewed it, because I was reading some of that as it was going on.
It's possible.
I don't know.
Perhaps.
It's okay to be wrong.
It is. Yeah, so they fix the RPG. Meanwhile, what is our tank crew up to during all of this? Their misadventures.
Well, they realize that they're trapped in this valley.
Right, they get to like a flat plain that's just like straight.
Yeah, and
It's a cool scene because they're like, oh, there's the road. We can get there now. And they're going full blast. And then Daskal kind of pops up with the binoculars and is looking. And then he's just like, stop.
Yeah. And in front of them was this huge gorge.
And it's like a sheer, straight drop off.
Yeah. So there's no way out of here. But then a Soviet helicopter appears.
Yeah.
This scene, Tiffany was screaming at the TV during this.
Because they're rescued here. They can go up with his helicopter crew. But Daskal says no, he will not abandon his tank.
We are tankers.
Right, the head of the helicopter crew says that there's no way out. You have to go back out the way you came in. And he's just like, come on, we'll get you out of here, and then we'll do an airstrike on the tank.
Yeah. And
and just saying that, Daskal is like, no.
Nope, we're going to go back. And he tells his man, get back in the tank.
Yeah, he says, you give us fuel, we'll drive back out and meet you there.
Yep. And I love the looks on the tanker, on the loader, and the...
Because they're already in the helicopter.
On the gunner, yeah. And they just have this look like, are you serious?
One of them,
What?
I think, it already, like, there was vodka or something on
Yeah.
it, and he's already like, yeah, we're back, man.
But nope.
You see it on their faces, too. They realize, like, oh, shit, we fucked up. Like, we backed the wrong play.
Right, because it's right before they turn on Kurvachenko. He asks them to kind of like team up with him. And he suggests they need to like put Daskal, not really kill him, but like incapacitate
Yeah,
him.
because it's only a matter of time before he does something to them, too. Right?
And now they realize they've kind of walked past the ledge on that.
Yep.
So they borrow fuel from the helicopter, which is another goof because I was reading about it, and there's no way that helicopter fuel like that could run the tank, especially as far as they are taking it.
Or maybe they carried, tank fuel to go to the lines and refuel tanks with.
But interesting though, after this scene is really where the tank starts to break down.
Oh yeah.
So maybe it was. Maybe they thought they could run the tank on this, and it's really just straight destroying. Because wasn't it running too hot?
Yeah.
So yeah, if it was burning helicopter fuel, that's going to burn a lot hotter than this tank probably runs on diesel. So
could be.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it wasn't so much of a goof.
And then they drive on for a while, and they come across the helicopter again. And it's landed near that water hole. And everyone's dead because they drink from the poisoned water.
Someone's poisoned the water hole.
Oops.
So there's no way they're getting out of there now.
And what's interesting is they roll on from it, and they're making for that pass to get back out. Well, then the Mujahideen are tracking them, and they come up on the helicopter. And Mustafa's just like, dude, we got the helicopter.
It's payday, yeah. And he's done chasing the tank because, we've got this helicopter. And like he and his man are sitting there in the cockpit. And it's like, do you know how to fly this thing?
He's like, you can figure this out, right? Yeah.
They did a bang up job with that RPG. The helicopter's got to be a lot easier to work than that RPG.
It's like, what are you going to do with it, man?
Which I think seems to be a common theme that kind of you see through. I'm not sure how inaccurate this is because these guys aren't trained, but everything is like. Granted, an AK-47 is pretty easy, point shoot.
Right.
That's what they're designed for. But like,
well, flying a helicopter is a bit more complicated.
No, there's always somebody who can fly a helicopter in like every action film.
So yeah, Taj and Kravchenko and a few of Taj's men, they soldier on, but Mustafa's group is kind of just out at this point.
Yep. But they catch up with the tank, and they're attacking it, and the tank's getting away. They think they're going to make it.
Very intense scene, too.
Yeah. And Kravchenko uses the RPG and hits the muzzle of the gun, the main gun, blows it up.
But the tank is fine.
Before this, though, there was an interesting scene where the tank they know they're there. And they're laying a trap, basically, for somebody to walk around that corner.
Oh, yeah.
And that dude walks around and I love how they did it. They didn't show gore for it. The dude was there, tank fires, and he's not there. I kept waiting for like pieces of him to fall, but I think it was better that they're just like, no, he's not there anymore. He's gone. But then we see Jason Patrick / Michael / Speed 2
Kravchenko
/ Constantine.
Why is that name so hard for you?
I don't know. Are you judging me?
No,
oh my God, why is that name so hard?
They say it like 5,000 times in the film.
Yeah. I mean, I don't always pay attention to names. At the beginning of every show, you're like, I'm one of your hosts, Dustin. And I'm like, oh, that's his name. Here with me is Michael. Oh, that's my name. He's basically showing them like how to get around the tank. Like
he shows them like the blind spots of where they can't aim so high and so low.
Because they were essentially running right into these tanks' traps.
I thought something that was kind of bugging me the whole time, though. I'm thinking, how many rounds of the big ammunition does this tank have? And it was bugging me, and I looked it up, and it could carry like 43 rounds.
Oh Jesus! Of like the giant,
of the 100mm shells.
Holy shit! I mean, that explains why it's so cramped inside.
You're right.
It's during this final conflict, too, where he asked for a certain kind of shell, and they don't have any more. And he's like, just load anything.
Yeah, they want a frag shell. They don't have any more.
It is. They do make an interesting scene, like talking about the claustrophobia of inside the tank. They do make an interesting scene of after they tie
Kravchenko.
God damn it. To the rock. And he's like, it is a lot roomier in here. They're saying.
That's right.
Because you really feel it. It's the night where they do like the deer killing. Because all of them are still alive and they're so cramped in the tank.
On top of each other.
Can you imagine how bad it smelled?
Oh, it's got to be horrible.
Oh, yeah.
Ugh.
The only interior of a tank I really have to go by is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. That's the only one I know. And
I bet that wasn't accurate.
That looked roomy.
Yeah, it didn't look too bad.
Like it had room for Sean Connery in it.
So after the RPG, this is kind of like what Dascal said coming true. The body of the tank is totally fine still, and they're just going to soldier on and get out of the pass. When there's a fortuitous explosion
yes.
high up in the mountain.
At first I was like, Well, it's interesting because he says, main dude who's of the Mujahideen. Taj says, Allah, why have you forsaken us? Like, you should have blessed us because we're doing your work.
Right, we're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And
then
this
big boom, and part of the rocks start collapsing, and you're like, what?
At first, I was like, fucking come on, man. Come on.
However, what we see is that it's Sharina and the women.
Yep.
Use their explosives.
Yep. And this traps the tank. It's not going anywhere. And then they start taunting him. I love that when Krivchenko calls him Tank Boy.
Yep.
Come out, Tank Boy!
And in the wake of the damage, it starts to leak fuel all around the tank.
Yeah.
So they take Taj's like headdress and light that.
Love he rips it off. He's like, what the fuck you doing, man?
Yeah, the guy's like, what?
And they set fire to it, and it forces the crew to bail on the tank, and they capture them.
Yep.
And at first, immediately, they're just going to off them and kill them. And Krivchenko pleads Nanawataya again for them. And this is like one of the most interesting scenes of the film, I think, is he confronts Deskal directly. And I put down the line because I liked it so much. He says, sorry, sir, not much of a war. No Stalingrad. How is it that we're the Nazis this time?
Yeah.
How is it? I tried to be a good soldier, but you can't be a good soldier in a rotten war, sir. Now I want you to live to see them win.
Yeah.
And then he tells them to just go and run.
Yeah. That was great. I like that a lot.
And that's really like probably a thesis statement on the film, almost.
Absolutely.
It's the only time that there was blatant writer interjection there of feelings on on what was happening. Like, you see it. It's painted very vividly, but it's the only time we blatantly hear the true thing.
But I always like a movie where the hero doesn't have to kill the villain at the end.
Right.
You know? Like,
and that's such a powerful statement, too, that he wants him to like live to see the outcome of it.
Yep. And so they run off, and then...
Unfortunately...
well, the Mujahideen, meanwhile, are arguing about what to do with Krivchenko in the meantime. You know? And Taj is defending him, saying, you know, we won't kill him. He's helped us, whatever. But, the women have tracked down the tank crew that have run off. Because Daskal's behind the other guys.
And you know, I love it, too. For the underlings, Golikov and Kaminsky, they take their boots, anything valuable they have on them, and they just make them walk away barefoot.
Right.
They ain't gonna live, man. You're not gonna survive that desert.
No.
Well, supposedly there's like a checkpoint.
Yeah, they're supposed to be close to an outpost or something. But they come upon Daskal, and we don't see it, but we know he's in for a bad time.
We see the aftermath as they show back up to the group, and they are just bloody as hell.
Yeah, they're covered in blood, and they throw down the like boots in his uniform, and it's all torn and covered in blood. And I love this scene so much. Krivchenko sees this, and he's like, "Oh shit!" And as luck would have it, there was a helicopter coming, Soviet helicopter.
It's the one they were supposed to meet up with, I think, originally.
Yeah, and they spot Krivchenko and everything, and he runs to it. He's like, I'm getting out of here. Because there's no way that Taj can keep these people from killing me.
No, eventually they're gonna...
Yeah.
And just before it happens, Taj gives him Giselle musket.
Yeah, I did a little bit of research on these things.
It looked really cool, so what do you got about it?
I think you mean a psycho rifle.
A psycho rifle. I'm pretty sure that the Tuscan Raider rifles were based on these.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
I'm sure they look just like it.
Let's see what we got here. I got a note. Okay, here we go. Called a Giselle. They were usually handmade and seen as very personal to the user.
Which it was very like lavishly designed.
Right, yeah, they're all unique. They all have their own different designs. They're all from 50 calibers. It could get up to like 14 pounds.
Holy shit.
Wow.
Yeah. The firing mechanisms were usually matchlock or flintlock. Like the one we saw in the movie was a flintlock. And Taj gives him his rifle, which is like a big deal. Gives Krivchenko his rifle.
Yeah, they start to airlift him out, and he just kind of salutes Taj and lets them fly off with him.
I was laughing at the end. I was like, are they going to pull this guy up? Because they just fly with him like hanging from the...
Tiffany actually said the exact same
harness. Like, you could pull him up a little bit, man. Like, but they just kind of... I wonder about the stuntman who did that scene. That's just like, you're just going to hang here for a while. We're going to fly with you. Come Come on, man. You can pull me up.
But I think it's an interesting ending because it would be so easy to be like, oh, well, he's friends with them now and he's just going to go off with them. And
Right, yeah.
they'll have more adventures and da-da-da. But he sees, like, equally on their side, this is, like, way more brutal than he wanted anything to happen.
Yeah.
And he's not cool with it. And
It also opens up an interesting thing of what's going to happen to him now. Like, obviously, he's the one who survives, so it's his story that's going to be the story of what
Everybody
happened.
fought bravely. They died. He happened to escape.
But, like, he doesn't want to fight anymore.
right.
Yeah.
So, how's he getting out? You know, like,
right. I mean-
what happens to him afterwards? It's not a beautiful ending.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. There's, like, an ambiguity because this is literally just, like, one little slice of a much bigger thing.
Oh, yeah.
And
I don't really think you can be like, well, I had this traumatic experience in a war, so I'm going to be out now.
right.
I think they're going to be like, no, you're going back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the movie.
Beast / Beast of War / Jason Patrick / Speed 2.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about the background on this film. I think it's better that we walked through the plot and everything first and kind of talked about bits that we liked. So this film, the screenplay was written by William Mastrosimone.
Master Simone?
Help me,
perhaps?
Jason.
I would say Master Simone, but
Our apologies.
we may be tearing that up. Sorry.
And he's a playwright. And he actually made this first as a play called Nanawatai.
I can
And
see that being a play. That's pretty cool. Because basically you just get the tank as the one setting.
Well, his previous play was basically about a truck driver and a girl, and it was just two people. It was
it
a
was
two-person
a very simple,
play.
like, two-person
So this is
drama.
in his
It's artsy.
wheelhouse. Wait, wasn't that the name of the play?
The
play?
Wool Gatherer.
Wool Gatherer, not wheelhouse. I don't know. It starts with a W.
And so it was
Clearly not
after
good
he
with
made this
names.
first play, he had gotten interested in this conflict that was going on, and it was almost like this obsession where he wanted to go over there and, like, see it firsthand and, like, learn their story of what's going on.
Yeah, because he had an idea for the story, but didn't want to. He wanted to actually observe it firsthand.
Which you could not do. It's very important to note that you
It's kind of hard to get into Afghanistan.
You could
in the middle
not
of the
just
war.
walk in. One does not simply just walk into Afghanistan.
Yeah. So he frequented this Afghan restaurant,
Yep.
and eventually through those people, he was told how to get over there. And basically, he just had to go to Pakistan, right? And
They
go
told
to
him-
go to this one particular hotel and wait.
Yeah, and it was very shady, very sketchy.
He's like, "Well, how long do I have to wait?" It's like, "We don't know."
But that's how it worked.
And he literally, like, it was almost like one of those do or die things. Like, he blew a ton of money to go
Yeah,
over there, and it was, like,
yeah.
pretty much all he had.
Balls of steel, man. This guy had balls of steel.
And so, but what's interesting is when they get him and take him, they take him by train from Pakistan, and they're going to the border. And they tell him, well, we have to meet with the local warlord. That dude
Yeah.
turns out to be one of the most brutal warlords Afghanistan had ever had.
Yeah, and that's what the writer was saying, because he didn't really know who he was talking to at the time.
No, but
And he said that he found him to be, like, charming, intelligent.
he embraced him because he wanted to talk about American politics. He wanted to, he realized he was a good guy. Just really wanted to shoot the shit with him.
It was Gulbuddin Hekmatyar.
And I think if you do some research on that guy, you'll see.
Well, the writer says that he later discovered that, like, he had a standing order to throw acid in the faces of the woman who didn't cover herself.
Yeah, he was a bad dude.
Yeah.
A really bad dude.
Jesus.
And he was one of the warlords that the CIA used as, like, a go-between to supply the Mujahideen.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah, if you ever get into any of that kind of stuff and, like, you look at that name, like, I had seen that guy's name before in some of the other research I'd done for college and stuff, and then I was like, oh, fuck. Like, you should not be talking to that guy.
Yeah, but so he kind of befriends the guy, and he okays for them to kind of sneak over the border and get into Afghanistan. He sends them with this, like, little group, and then they just get thrown, like, right into the fighting.
Yeah, it's insane.
I think this article, which we'll link to this article.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes, because this is one of the
sure.
ones that Nick sent us. He said, like, hey, check this out after you've watched the film.
Even if you don't watch the movie, it's a fascinating read.
I think that this shows, like, when you see somebody who has a fascination with, like, war, and then they see it, and they're like, I'm not fascinated with this anymore.
Yeah.
Like, he wants to write about it and tell the truth about it.
Yeah, he thought he should be like Hemingway, actually
But
live it.
But yeah, you learn real quick, like, oh, this is not what I thought it was.
And it's where during this trip is where we get some of these stories that definitely, you can just see like some of this was like pulled and made into scenes in the film where it's like they capture a tank crew and they all look like young American youths almost, and they let him interview them, but then afterwards they're going to kill him, and he just has to see them get gunned down.
Yeah, that's brutal.
And then there's another part later where it's like they're in the mountains, and he had come down, he was like sick, I believe, something was wrong with him.
Like he really couldn't move.
He could barely walk, and so they just leave him. They leave him with a little bit of food and water, and they leave him a gun with, it was like 2 or 3 bullets.
It's like 2 bullets.
Yeah, 2 bullets. It was like one...
in case he fucks up.
Yeah.
And the backup to finish it, yeah.
And it was like he crawled like to a nearby cave with all his strength to just try to get out of the sun. And eventually it's like a local village boy finds him.
Yeah, they thought he was a Russian, so they're going to kill him.
But they end up like bringing him back to the village, and they take care of him and nurse him back to health. And there was like a doctor there, I want to say, that he could speak English.
Yeah.
And he was able to like relate with him. And it was a thing he says where it's like when they left him on the mountain, his guide that he was with says like, well, we think that like Allah will just like write the time that you're going to pass on.
Yeah.
And it's already decided.
He writes your fate on your forehead.
And,
So he's a Calvinist.
and he tells them maybe it's your fate to die on this mountain, maybe not. If you do, then that's just what it was. And so later they come back through the village, and they're surprised to find him alive, and his guide tells them, well, it wasn't your time to die then.
Yeah, obviously.
It makes life so much easier if you buy into that.
True.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you're just cursed with depression.
So he has all these insane experiences, and then he comes back and he makes this play. And in the shake of things, like the outline of it gets sent to Kevin Reynolds.
Yes.
It's forwarded by somebody. He's very interested in it, and he goes to see the play. And he talked about how it was this lavish thing where they actually had like a big prop tank on the stage that they used. And when he saw it, the first thought he had was, this is like really good. Like I like the story, I like the themes, but it needs to be a movie.
Yeah.
And so he talks to him and he says like, hey, write this into a screenplay and we will make it. It'll be a movie. It needs to be a movie.
Absolutely.
And so he rewrote it and it became the screenplay The Beast.
And Kevin Reynolds would go on to direct notably Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves,
Love that
and
film.
Waterworld. Do you love Waterworld?
I think it's a very problematic film, but I think it's got a lot of cool ideas there.
Sure.
I liked it a lot as a kid. And then I watched Road Warrior when I grew up, and I was like, oh, this is Road Warrior on water.
Yeah. Apparently there's a crazy director's cut now version of it that Arrow put out. Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind seeing it. I wonder what's different about it.
I don't know. Topic for another time, perhaps.
I always remember being scared by the giant alligator mutated thing that he ends up catching and eating.
Pretty crazy. And so this, we need to get into the thing about like he in the original letter that Nick sent us, he said it only aired on like 2 screens. So in the wake of this, they make this film. It had a budget of $8 million. They finish it. It's a great film, and they're doing this for Columbia Pictures.
Yep.
As this is going on, Columbia Pictures is kind of changing hands, and the ownership of the studio changed. So the guy they had before, he was all on board with this. New guy comes in, completely fresh slate for everything, and he wasn't quite as interested in the project. And who should turn up but Sylvester Stallone with the idea for Rambo 3.
Which they thought would be much more profitable. And they were probably right in their defense.
And it's set in Afghanistan. So, of course, this is where you get the dumb, like, executive thinking where it's like, well, we can't have 2 films at the same time.
Yeah, why not? 2 completely different movies that deal sort of with the same conflict, but in completely different ways.
It's not like, they're going to confuse them. How would they ever know, like, this one's got a tank, this one's got Rambo? Those are just equivalent ideas, apparently.
Yeah, so they just dump it on the 2 screens.
Yep, so
it explains why I never heard of this thing in the 80s.
They shuttered it, they buried it, they put it on 2 screens to fulfill contractual obligations so it could qualify for awards. They released it in New York and Los Angeles. It ran for a few weeks, then withered away. and their box office was only $161,004.
Ouch.
That's got to be so frustrating for the filmmakers. It's just, you bleed for this movie, and then it's just...
But how often? I mean, that happens so much.
Yeah.
And so we go back to the letter that Nick sent us, and there are no critical reviews on Rotten Tomatoes because there's nothing to source, really. I'm sure it got some reviews in, like, you know, magazines or something, but...
papers.
You know, it's
Business
lost to
papers.
time now at this point. Which is just crazy to me.
Such a shame. I figured that was... I didn't know that when I was thinking about this, and I wrote down, thinking to myself that I'm pretty sure this did not get released widely because it's not your typical 80s, you know, chest-thumping, jingoistic, yay America type of movie that was being made then.
It's much more thoughtful and complex, I think.
Right.
And to this day, Mastro Simone, he still thinks this was his best work that he ever made. He's gone on to do other plays, other screenplays and stuff, tons of work. But this one has always been, like, special to him.
Yeah.
As it should be.
Because I think it's in that article, he talks about how, like, he really felt, like, the situation that was going over there. And there were people that told him, like, no one really knows our story. Like, no one in the U.S. truly understands it. And he thought, if I can in any way, like, bring that to a wider audience.
And I think this, arguably, gives us a more nuanced and more interesting look into Afghanistan Mujahideen than Rambo 3 did.
Yeah.
No. I also think this also lines up a whole lot more if you talk to American soldiers that have served in Afghanistan, and you talk to them about their experiences with the people of Afghanistan. This lines up. You know, a lot more of... It's almost like how many more times do you have to say, please leave us the fuck alone?
Yeah. And that's the thing is, like, maybe this film should have been wide release because it's just a few years later and, oh, here we are doing the exact same thing that they're doing in the film.
Yep.
To the same, like, zero-sum game.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I get it. It's a lot deeper than that. I know there's a lot more political things going on than that. And there are people in Afghanistan that truly want to be liberated from their oppressors because there are oppressive regimes just like every other thing. But at the same time, it's like it's never worked.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what are you going to do? Like, Russia couldn't do it. America couldn't do it. Like, you're running out of superpowers. China's like, we don't want anything to do with that.
It's futile, no doubt.
So yeah, that was. I think it's very interesting because, like, there's so much. The story of the film being made is as interesting as the film itself is to watch.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm really happy this suggestion came in too because this also has one of the shittiest covers.
Yeah.
Well, it's very generic.
Yeah.
It's just...
We watched this on Amazon Prime. It's streaming on Prime.
Speaking of, it's on Prime. It's rated R for, amongst other things, nudity and sexual content.
I didn't see any of that.
No, there wasn't any. And I saw that and I'm like, oh, that could be bad. Is there like some rape or something going on? Because that's, you know, warfare.
Yeah, right.
Soviets did that. But no, there was none of that. I'm thinking, oh, you know what? Amazon has this confused with the 1975 film The Beast.
Which is a problem with the title because there's a ton of films named The Beast.
Right. And this one is by Valerian Borzik. And it's... there are sexually explicit scenes in it. It's about this monster that is... There's one scene where there's, like... It's probably in the girl's mind. But anyway, it's this monster with this giant phallus that's attacking the girl, and she has to kill it by giving it a hand job.
So, of course, you've seen it.
Yeah. But I think it's hilarious.
Save that for the Urotsuki Doji block.
I just think it's hilarious they have that confused with that movie.
And that's what I would say. Like, the title is The Beast, but the alternative title is The Beast of War. And if you're going to look for this and you don't know the year 1988 off the top of your head, it may be better to search with The Beast of War, because when you just go The Beast with no year, like The Beast film, there's a lot of, like, static in there that's going to get in the way.
Right.
I even had to message you guys when I was watching it, like, because I was trying to search Beast of War on Amazon, nothing came up. I tried to search Beast of War just in my Roku, like, tell me where this is streaming, nothing comes up. And I was like, what the fuck is the name of this movie? And Dustin's like, well, it's technically Beast of War, but you got to search The Beast on Amazon. And did his typical Dustin thing of like...
Which really, I think The Beast is the better title, because that's that David and Goliath story, like, metaphorically thrown in there.
Sure.
But
It is awfully generic, though.
That's the unfortunate thing is there's so many The Beast.
And people are going to confuse it with the Borojik movie. So
Or the roller coaster at Kings Island.
great coaster.
That's more of a
Still
local
one of the
thing,
best.
but you know,
Still one of the best.
I don't know, some people have probably been. I don't know.
It's a famous, coaster. I'm
It's
sure
a
people
wooden
come from all
roller
over the world
coaster.
to-
shout out to Kings Island, man. Right in if you've ever been. Hey, it's film related because they used to have the Paramount license.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
They had the Days of Thunder ride.
Outer Limits, Flight of Fear.
Yeah.
That's a
Love
good
that.
coaster, too.
Yeah,
Top
hell yeah.
Gun. Top Gun was fun. Yeah. Well, shut up.
I think their last one before they closed was like the Italian Job.
I have vertigo. I can't do roller coasters, and I can't do loops. And you're like, it's fine if you're a. Never
Say
mind.
it. No?
No,
It's okay for a light coaster.
Yeah.
it's fine.
It's okay for children.
Okay, so I think we're pretty much. Does anyone have anything else before final thoughts?
I'd like to see you fucking do the Beast now, you old ass.
Oh, I'll do it.
It'll beat the shit out of you.
And actually, the waiting in line will beat the shit out of me.
The next day, you're gonna be like, my back hurts. Okay, sorry.
Any other thoughts before we wrap up?
I think I'm good.
Okay, so Michael, final thoughts.
I'm going 4.5. I really dug this movie. Not a whole lot that I have any problems with, other than what I mentioned about the grenade thing. But you know, how many people survive grenades in movies all the time? And you're like, okay, well, you should.
It just blows up a little puff of dirt, don't you know that?
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
just go flying a little bit.
Just need a squid.
Hey,
That's
maybe it
all
was
we-
a dud.
No, I'm pretty sure it was real. Kill that dog. It clearly wasn't
the
a
dog
dud.
absorbed most of the shrapnel.
It was a wild dog. It's already half dead, man.
I'm really glad Nick wrote us and
Absolutely,
about
yeah.
this film.
Thank you so much, man. I think your pursuit of wanting to like boost the levels on this movie is
I
a
get
very,
it.
very noble
Yeah.
cause. I think.
It's not that often that someone will tell us that we should watch a movie that I've never fucking heard of.
Yeah.
Which is pretty difficult for us because, I mean, we're pretty big film nerds. And so,
I'm not the biggest on war movies in general, but so when I got it, I was like, oh, of course, I don't know what this is, Jason. And then you were like,
Yeah, I never heard of
yeah.
it.
I mean, I've watched a shit ton of them. I watched them a lot with my grandfather. You know, anything that played on TV, I watched. And then I sought them out a lot because I wasn't into horror for the longest time. So I sought out action films and like action war. Those are my go-tos. And so I saw all of them. And I'd never heard of this movie. So I was really surprised to see really how deep it was.
Yeah.
Like, I was kind of expecting...
I can believe that it was a play once I learned that.
Oh, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be honest, one of the things that almost put me off about this was the mention of Tarantino in it.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't do a lot for me. When somebody's like, well, Tarantino this, Tarantino that.
I mean, say what you will about Tarantino, he does have good taste in movies. Anyway.
Yeah, but also at the same time, a lot of those get overblown.
Sure.
To where I'm like, okay, I don't really... Whatever.
Like, Switchblade Sisters really that good?
Or also when he keeps referencing
It is
shit.
pretty good,
Like, one of my biggest... Okay, small side rant. One of my biggest issues with Kill Bill is when they start talking about Shogun Assassin. And I'm like, don't talk about Shogun Assassin. Talk about the full movies.
Yeah.
Talk about Lone Wolf and Cub. Don't give me the
Sure,
cut versions.
but that, well,
That was how they saw
Shogun
it, though.
Assassin was probably seen by more people than all
I
the
don't give a
actual
shit.
movies.
No, it's Quentin Tarantino. He can promote whatever he wants by that time. If he's not
I
promoting...
think that's more in line with the Grindhouse reality because that's what most people would have seen.
But if he's not promoting the box set of Lone Wolf and Cub,
Criterion. Excellent set, too.
I don't want it.
okay,
anyway.
that's extremely nitpicky. But
I
okay,
love
all right.
Lone Wolf and Cub, so I'm kind of with you there.
It's extremely nitpicky coming from you. That's rich.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Anyway, back on topic.
Yep. So what would you give this score-wise?
I already said it.
4.5.
You're like, what would you give this? Oh, yeah.
I was trying to just steer us back.
I remember you said what you'd give it. Yeah. 4.5. I really, really liked it. Was unsure that I would like it at first. Kind of got sucked into it. Realized it was a lot deeper than what I was expecting. Super solid film.
Nice. I'll go next because you're the war film expert
Sure. Oh, I don't know about that, but okay.
among us, perhaps.
Yeah, well.
So yeah, war movies aren't usually my thing. It's not that I don't really have an aversion to them. It's just nothing I'll ever think to seek out. And that's why I love doing what we're doing with this, because like this is a movie I would never see if left to my own devices. But because someone's recommended it to us, I was able to come to it and check it out. And man, I really, really loved it. And I think it's what you're saying, Michael. There's so much more like layering and nuance to this.
Not typical of war movies.
Because there are those big action set pieces, but there's so much more like depth to the story and the characters and everything that plays out. And it just impressed me like start to finish at every level. I'll say if I could give any criticism, I think the music's like a little forgettable.
It's a little generic, yeah.
There's nothing about it that like strikes you or like really like hits on the big moments or anything. But
Sure.
when that's like the worst thing I can sum it up to say about it, like I'm with you, Nick, man. Like Shout Factory, Criterion, someone, the Blu-ray is bought the second it comes out, so I would give it 5 stars.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
I really loved it.
Nice. Nick, you might make a war movie fan out of Dustin yet. Oh, my turn. Okay.
Yes.
Well, since it did not have the nudity and sexual content I was promised,
Instant negative 1 star.
I liked it a lot. I think it's really impressive. I could definitely see why it's not more well known, other than just the fact that the studio just fucked it over. Because it is thoughtful. I can't really fault it for anything. I want to give it 4 stars. I don't know why I'm not giving it higher, to be honest with you.
Because you have a reputation to uphold.
Not everything can get 5. But, I mean, it's a solid, fun movie. I was never bored. I was always engaged. It's cool to see a good 80s film I'd missed, because I missed that style so much. I miss movies actually shot on film. I watched Matrix Resurrections recently.
That's a rebukel.
It is.
Fuck it.
And it's like $200 million movie, and it looks like shit. It looks like something made for Netflix. And I'm like, you have all this money, and this is the best looking movie you can make. Whereas an $8 million movie, granted 1980s dollars, but still, it's a low budget.
Yeah.
Looks beautiful and still looks great.
And with so much practical effects work.
Yeah, it's so much fun. If you like war movies at all, check it out. You will dig it. I give it 4 stars.
Nice. Well, we said it several times, but thank you, Nick, for writing in about this movie. Please, if you have a movie that you love, that you champion out there, that you think is just great or underloved, or you want more people to see it, write into us, let us know. We'll add it to our collection, and at some point we'll get around to it for an episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't plan on stopping doing this anytime soon.
Yep, these are going to be our breaks between our little series of themed blocks of movies.
Nice segue, Dustin.
Which brings us to the next topic at hand.
Wow, it's almost like he wrote that.
I know.
Kind of off the cuff, man.
So, yeah, if you've paid attention to any of the previous episodes that have released, we've been talking about that we are going to switch formats just a tiny bit, just to kind of rein us in a little bit and kind of focus on some things we accidentally did in our first year.
Which I think with the Giallo thing, I think we had some neat through lines, episode to episode, film to film. Some that we didn't even plan.
It's almost like we know what we're doing sometimes.
Vaguely.
Let's not go crazy here.
Spoiler, we don't. So it's my pick this time. So I get to choose the block, and we have this giant list running between all of us of all these ideas that we have. But I'm going to start off out of the gate with Westerns.
Ah, my wish is granted.
And we're going to do our best to kind of stay away from some of the Westerns that you probably grew up on.
As best we can.
Yeah, as best we can. But
if you were like a diehard, you've probably seen anything we could muster up. But
yeah, but there's, how much more can we add to the conversation about The Good, Bad, and the Ugly?
Right.
Or High Plains Drifter, or...
I do love that movie, though.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome.
So
it's great.
So good.
So I am going to go for a film that I absolutely love out of 1985, I believe. Yep, 1985. Film called Silverado. Jason, I know you've seen this one. You were actually the one who told me I should watch it a long time ago.
Yeah.
I've never seen it, so...
No, this is one of those old movies on VHS I'd watch with my dad,
Yeah,
nice.
every couple years.
It's a classic. It's kind of lighthearted, a little bit on the goofy side, starring Kevin Kline. And
a bunch of people.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those all-star cast ensemble films where big names that weren't maybe as big at the time, but they'd pop into the movie and you're like, oh, there's so-and-so. This is actually super easy to watch. This is, I believe, streaming on Amazon Prime.
Nice, okay. Sticking with Prime.
Yeah. Well, it's because you hate Netflix, so we can't watch anything on there.
If it's
Sure
there, if it's what we do, it's what we do.
But yeah, great cast. Film that I think is just a ton of fun. And definitely underseen, because usually when you're talking to people about Westerns, if I mention Silverado, they're like,
I think it's an Eagle song or something.
Yeah. That's Desperado, cool. You jackass.
You can join us next time, and we'll dig into that and dig into Westerns, and we'll see how it evolves across the next few episodes.
As always, thank you guys so much for joining in on our journey with us. Keep writing. Keep commenting. I love it.
Some more good movies, like The Beast.
Even if, dude, I will straight up tell you, even if we don't end up being able to cover these, we're going to watch them.
Yep, at some point.
And we will do our best to give it its credit. You know, there's only so many that we can watch. So we'll do our best to give it its due. But until then, yeah, keep writing, keep suggesting, doing all those things. As always, you've been listening to Genre Exposure.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.